Why can't you sustain real worship habits? You rush through life checking off spiritual to-dos, Sunday services, praise nights, quiet times. Yet you secretly crave the next spiritual high, rather than the heart posture behind each act of worship. And that hidden performance mentality is your first barrier for Romans 12:1. Reminds you that true worship is a living sacrifice of your whole life, not simply a checklist of activities. You're drowning in busyness, convinced that productivity honors God more than pausing to worship in spirit and truth. Yet Luke 10:41's warning to Martha exposes the danger of distraction when Jesus says, "Mary chose what is better." Your frantic pace is silently stealing your worship rhythm. You shy away from authentic worship because of unaddressed shame. Hidden wounds keep your face down when Psalm 34:18 assures that the Lord is near those who are brokenhearted, and refusing to bring your raw self before Him throttles the flow of genuine praise. You neglect the community of worship, skipping gatherings out of convenience or comparison. Hebrews 10:25 warns against forsaking assembly. Yet your hidden fear of not measuring up in the choir of saints shuts you out of the synergy that fuels consistent devotion. You may quote scripture, but you haven't rooted your daily praise in the discipline of walking with God. Thessalonians 5:16-18 commands you to rejoice. Always pray, continually. Give thanks in all circumstances. And ignoring this call reduces worship to an occasional weekend experience, instead of the constant communion God intends. You struggle because you demand perfect moments before lifting your voice. Waiting for the right song, the perfect mood, or a serene setting betrays the humble offering of your flawed but faithful heart. That Proverbs 27:2 urges you to cultivate privately before expecting applause. You're deceived by the lie that worship must feel profound to be valid. Yet Jeremiah 29:13 promises that if you seek God with all your heart, you will find Him. Dismissing simple expressions of gratitude or singing along in the kitchen means you're missing the hidden thresholds where God meets you. You compare your worship to others, envying those whose voices resonate or whose experiences feel more spiritual, secretly believing you're not enough. But Galatians 6:4 exhorts you to test your own work, not gauge your devotion by someone else's display. You resist the refining power of consistent sacrificial worship because it exposes idols lurking in your heart. Comfort, control, approval. And until you surrender those pretentious demands to Christ, your worship will remain tepid and disengaged. You may chase new worship trends and technology to spark zeal, yet neglect the fundamental posture of your soul. Micah 6:8's call to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God is the bedrock of uninterrupted worship, and ignoring it reveals your focus on form over substance. You're distracted by tomorrow's plans and yesterday's regrets, allowing anxiety to mute your praise instead of anchoring your heart in the unchanging character of God. Philippians 4:6 urges prayer and thanksgiving as the antidote to worry, but bypassing regular praise warps your spiritual thermostat. You resist building small worship disciplines, memorizing a psalm upon waking, pausing to thank God at lunch, singing a short hymn before bed. Yet Zephaniah 3:17 promises, God rejoices over you with singing. Refusing these simple rhythms means you're chosen to miss out on His joy. You struggle because you've confined worship to sacred spaces, ignoring John 4:23's declaration that the Father seeks true worshipers in spirit and truth, and failing to worship Him anywhere and everywhere shackles your devotion to four walls. You think worship must be loud or extravagant, overlooking the shocking truth in 1 Kings 19:12 that God often speaks in a gentle whisper, and your neglect of quiet contemplative praise keeps you deaf to His voice. You avoid accountability around worship habits, letting secret neglect become a private sin. And until you invite a trusted friend or community to guard your worship life, you'll drift aimlessly. You measure spiritual maturity by emotional intensity rather than by the steady flame of small, consistent offerings, and that hidden craving for the spectacular over the steady undermines your growth. You cling to spiritual stagnation under the guise of humility, thinking you're unworthy until you feel worthy. Yet Ephesians 2:8 reminds you it's by grace, not works, that you draw near. Hiding behind false humility stalls every attempt at true worship. So here's your decisive challenge. Confess your secret performance mentality. Shed every idol that distracts, embrace small, daily worship. Disciplines in spirit and truth. Step into community accountability. And offer your ordinary moments as living sacrifices. Only then will you break free from the struggle and cultivate a worship habit that pulses with genuine connection to Jesus.